What's the most painful truth you've ever learned about your family? Growing up, I always thought my family was decently well off. We were never millionaires or anything, but we lived comfortably enough to attend private school and never heard about money problems from our parents. But then when I was 18, my whole life flipped upside down, literally. I came home from school to find my dad in the backyard, hammering a for sale sign into the front lawn by our house. I saw my mom through the window, standing in the kitchen crying while shoving dishes into boxes. Me and my younger siblings just stood there looking confused. Dad wouldn't even look at me. That night, a real estate agent showed up with paperwork, and my parents signed away our house like it was nothing. Mom tried calling her sister for help, but I heard my aunt through the phone saying, "You made your bed, now lie in it." Dad called his banker brother and got an even worse lecture about financial responsibility before getting hung on. We slept in our SUV in the Walmart parking lot that first night. My little brother kept asking when we were going home and my parents couldn't answer him. I had no idea what was happening either. The next morning, we drove to a homeless shelter, but they were full. And it's while waiting in line at the second shelter that my mom finally broke down and told us the truth. Turns out we were never well off. In fact, we were broke. The only reason it seemed like we had money is because my parents had been borrowing against the house for years. When I asked Mom why she was doing this, she told me it was because she was trying to keep up with her family and not look like the black sheep who never got rich. She told me that every vacation we ever took, every car she bought, every extravagant creatmas we ever got, was all so she could compete with and show her family that she wasn't less than her sister. My jaw was practically on the floor. I looked over at Dad almost as if to see if it was true, and his look told me everything. He pulled out his phone and showed me the real numbers, $500,000 in debt, and somehow, that was only the beginning of our troubles. At the shelter intake desk, the social worker needed all our documents. Mom started digging through her purse, and as she did, I saw my college fund statements fall out. I picked them up and looked over them, and that's when I realized it. I waited behind her, absolutely seething, to confront her. Thankfully, the shelter gave us a room with bunk beds and a bathroom, and the second we moved into that room, that's when I confronted Mom. I shoved my college fund statement papers in her face and asked her to explain. She started stammering as she realized I had figured out that they were fake. The paper didn't look official, and there were no stamps. These statement funds were Google Docs she had typed up and printed out to show her family. She'd been printing them at home. She started crying, and through tears told me that my account had been emptied when I was 12 to pay for that Disney vacation, where we stayed at the same resort as my cousins. Dad hung his head in shame. I turned to his next. I asked him what he was lying about, and he started spilling too. Turns out he'd lost his executive job 3 years ago. He'd been driving Uber while telling us he was at the office. He'd leave in his suit every morning and change in gas station bathrooms. I was appalled. I asked them how could they do this, but all they could do was shrug their shoulders. However, it was right around this time I realized something. Although my parents were clearly very, very stupid, they weren't monsters. The real monsters were their families. A few days into us living at the shelter, my mom's sister started removing our family from all their Facebook pictures. They stopped returning our calls, and despite being rich, wouldn't give us a dime. The cherry on top came when my dad's parents visited us at the shelter, but they didn't come to help. They came to tell him he could move back home if he divorced my mom. He actually refused. But then came the true crushing blow. My parents wouldn't even be in such debt had they not lost their money investing. They invested tens of thousands into online crypto, all because their financial advisor heavily pushed them to. And who was that advisor? None other than my mom's sister's husband. He sold them terrible investments while taking huge commissions because he fully believes our family was well off and could do with losing the money. But when he realized what his advice did to my parents, he just stayed quiet. I felt more devastated than I ever have that day. The bankruptcy hearing was brutal. Our entire country club circle showed up to watch. The judge read out every expensive purchase while we sat there and donated clothes. Club fees we couldn't afford. Jewelry my mom wore once. Vacations that destroyed our future. Our life became hell right after. My siblings got bullied at their new school when kids found out we lived in a shelter. My mom tried to end her life in the shelter bathroom. I found her and had to scream for help while trying to stop the bleeding. Dad completely withdrew. 18 months later, we're still in transitional housing. I work 3 jobs and take night classes at community college. My parents stayed together, but they're different now. We're all different.